introductions and kind of open up with a presentation. So I'm going to hand it over to Larry, and Larry and Jim have been instrumental in sort of putting this together with us, and I just want to say thanks to them for really staying on focus and doing this, because I really feel that these sessions are helpful for all of us, and we always like to get some good outcomes and feedback from all of you. So as you go through the day, let us know what we can improve on. Let us know what we talked about that you want to hear more about. If there's any follow-up, anything, just let us know. We try to do our best to listen and respond. So with that, Larry, over to you.
Thanks, Stuart. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here. This is our first CEO forum in the new digs, and so this classroom works pretty well. This is our fourth forum. Some of the veterans can remember the first one that we had a couple of years ago, so we're trying to have 2 a year, bringing all the CEOs, the portfolio CEOs together, and learning from one another, and learning from the guest speakers, and an opportunity for some synergy and brainstorming and strategic thought. So we're looking forward to a beneficial morning. Wanted to acknowledge some special friends and colleagues who are working with Clayton Advisors. And we have expanded our team of Clayton Advisors beyond Clayton Associates to include colleagues of ours who we've worked with for many years in various capacities, healthcare leaders who are retired but who still have a lot of energy and interest and fuel in the tank, so to speak. And they're helping Jim and Stuart and myself in accelerating the revenue opportunities on behalf of various clients, and many of you here in this room, to help get to yes as fast as possible, to help get to a senior leader in a health system. And so the colleagues who are here with us this morning are Mike McPherson, former senior executive with Genentech Corporation, Pat Romano, former healthcare hospital executive CEO of various not-for-profit health systems around the country, Arlen Reynolds, former CEO, entrepreneur, hospital health system CEO, was the former CEO of Centura Health in Denver, a lot of CEO experience in Tenet as well, and HCA as well. Paul Rutledge, former senior officer with HCA, as we used to say back in HCA, on the fourth floor. That fourth floor is sort of rarefied air, and as Jim and I can attest, you'd sort of punch the code, get to the fourth floor. But Paul is a great friend and former boss. It is interesting that at the end of the day, I had my first boss, Pat Romano, from 35 years ago. Sorry, Pat, I got to tell. And then my last boss, Paul Rutledge. So we're going to have like this family shot.
He's our boss.
He's our boss.
And we have, let's see, some friends who aren't here today. Rodney Van Pelt, who's the CFO with HCA based in Florida. Dan Miller, CEO, senior leader of HCA. Tim Minton is a senior CFO, CEO with Broward Health System in South Florida. So again, expanding the net of influence on behalf of our clients. We're actually videotaping and recording the presentation today. We're going to share that with, right, Jay? Streaming. Oh, live streaming. So the camera is somewhere. I'm not quite sure. Right there. So
pointed right at
share
you.
this with Dan and Rodney and Tim and others who aren't here today. We also are very thankful to have a friend of ours with us throughout this morning, Ben Pope, who's a senior executive with Medtronic. And Ben and Jim have worked very closely together over the years, sort of on two sides of the aisle, battling back and forth with negotiations and getting to yes, and sometimes getting to no. But I'm going to ask Ben and Jim to tag team a little bit during Ed's presentation. Unfortunately, Ed Jones had a conflict today at the last minute. But in his place, we'll call Ben and Jim to speak a little bit to the GPO world, to some of the challenges of getting to yes, or the art and science of sales, and share some very beneficial information for all of us. I also want to acknowledge our friend and colleague Jim Lackey, who will be one of the keynote speakers this morning. Jim and I have laughed about business casual. I like Jim's definition of business casual. You know, who needs a jacket, business casual, and you've got the Farm and B logo, brother. I mean, you're advertising, you know. So at noon, we'll have Farm and B hats for everybody that takes home with them. Right, but all kidding aside, really appreciate your time here. And on the back of your agenda is a list of all the attendees and name, rank, and not serial number, but email information. And then also, there's a handout of the companies, the portfolio companies. So to share that with you. Before we kick it off with Jim, I just wanted to run through the agenda for a moment and highlight just some points here. We'll see, we'll have a break after Jim's presentation and Michael's presentation, and then we'll move forward with Ben and Jim Fitzgerald, and then some discussion around growth strategies and getting to yes much faster, some of the lessons learned within this room, because we have great experiences inside this room and opportunities to learn from one another. And then we'll wrap up around 12. By the way, toward the end of the morning, about 11:50, we have representatives from the office furniture company that they've been in contact with Stewart about opportunities to work with each of you on a discount basis in the event that you're looking at office needs, to be able to facilitate that sort of in a manner of a mini GPO if you're interested in it. Okay. Any questions before we get started? Just have a couple of slides I want to share with you to sort of set the stage before Jim comes forward. Like all of you, I sort of read journals and try to stay current on topics and advice from experts out there. And we are dealing with lots of challenges around our industry. And here are just some quotes that sort of hit home. I'm going to walk through these policies in Washington, making it difficult to plan for the future, the knee-jerking reality of these bureaucratic regulations. The quote, that we have to be efficient, utilize resources appropriately, plus protecting the quality of care. We have this fixed reimbursement environment in the healthcare industry. The quote here, going to see more collaboration among providers, more networking. The economy, the healthcare has been affected a bit by the economy, but not as much as other sectors. And the economy, the challenge that we continue to see with the economy in sort of bits and pieces. The forecast is more accountability placed on individuals for their personal health, and so the point being that we're going to see more and more of that in the future. And then with the National Healthcare Program coming forward, on top of what we're doing today, the point being the challenge of rationing care in the future, and to pay for that rationing care model. And if the recession continues in the next few years, it'll have an effect on all of us. Unknown factors, what's going to happen from the policymakers in Washington, and certainly we've seen that a lot through healthcare reform, through the dysfunction of Washington. Over the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see more and more employers going to prevention. This is the last slide. There's one more set of quotes. And it's interesting that all these quotes were out of 1993 in a journal, CEO interviews. And our friend, mentor, and colleague, Clayton McWhorter, was interviewed back then. It's sort of a time capsule, 1993, 21 years ago, is that right? And it's fascinating that, the challenge of healthcare, a lot of things don't change, a lot of things do change, but the challenges that we face today, the challenges that we faced 21 years ago. And Clayton, perhaps if more people listened to you 21 years ago, we would have a better model
I don't remember what I said.
well, we have this available for
Okay.
us, archives. And the good thing is about technology, you can never hide from your quotes. I mean, you can't say, I didn't say that. Well, we have evidence that you did. So, and there was another quote in this article that really hit home to me and several folks 21 years ago. And this is a quote. Turned over about 50% of our hospital CEOs since we started the company. I did not realize, I was a hospital CEO with HCA, then a hospital CEO with Health Trust, and that, 4 or 5 years into the Health Trust experience, that there was a 50% turnover rate, among my colleagues. I didn't realize that, but I mean, if you had announced that, there would have been a higher stress factor. and I'm thankful that I passed the 50% test, And I also started wondering, well, what did you and Charlie Martin back in the day, how did y'all determine? Was there a flip of the coin, right? It's like, all right, there's tails. We're going to keep this close guy, But anyway, it sort of hit home that, man, those were
Just remember, we had a gun to our head.
Yeah.
We were trying to survive.
That's right. Yeah, we had absolutely a gun to our head, and it was make it happen or else from a financial perspective. So anyway, we'll sort of put things in perspective for me. But anyhow, we're going to transition to our friend and colleague, Jim Lackey. Jim has been an entrepreneur for many years. I'll let Jim tell the story with respect to Passport and the success of that company, his role in various board capacities within our portfolio and outside the portfolio. And as we were talking about, think about the agenda for today, we thought, who better than Jim Lackey to share some of the experiences of being an entrepreneur, the lessons learned, some real valuable information we can all take away this morning. So Jim, welcome.
Here he is.
So, Bob Yeager, you know Bob? Everybody know Bob Yeager? So he's got a back pain and he's got a shot, some kind of injection, and he's laying on his back, but he's watching me. Hey Bob, how you doing? I told him I needed a standing ovation. So I had told Larry, I said, I've canned something, so I'm going to use it on y'all. Probably most of you are too far advanced for this. And so you just go, oh yeah, I knew all that stuff. But I think you'll enjoy it. And I'd like to hear some feedback, even long ago, if you do that, because I'm doing these periodically. Usually it's young companies that just started up, they're trying to figure out where they're going. So I use that. So for me, startup was here. So this is my wife Phyllis, when we got married 38 years ago, and we knew each other 7 weeks when we got married. And those who love each other, we just loved each other. What can I say? Love at first sight. And I'm not a procrastinator, and I'm committed. So 7 weeks is like a perfect time. And I'll tell you something, they can't plan much in 7 weeks. You know what I mean? Can't spend a lot of money. And the maximum value is this. So I've got 4 grandkids. We've been married 38 years, 3 sons, one son. One's unmarried, if y'all know, single women. Just trying to get the other back. One in the middle of the back. These are my grandkids. it was great. Grew up in Nashville. How many of you did that? So, wow, that's good. So grew up in Nashville, stayed a little bit, went to Oklahoma, had a lot of family connections there. We've been married 38 years, two granddaughters, see all this. So one of the co-founders really of Passport Health Community Services, I'll talk a little bit about that, but really a technology startup. We started in 1996. But the whole premise of the business was the internet might not be a fad, which sounds funny now, but back then it was not even bad. I mean, people just didn't use it. We used to do presentations, and people would stop me and say, "Tell me what this internet thing again is." And you know, you real guys are like, "He's crazy," but it really did. Remember, Clayton? No internet. You remember that? So we started that then, and today, chairman and CEO of a little company, really helping hospitals on the reimbursement side after I retired from Passport. On pharmacy, mental health, National Capital Network, patient focus, and that's most of these are startup, companies, fairly young companies, and that's really what I like to do. And I have a lot of hobbies, so I fly and drive motorcycles and stuff. And really always wanted to be in healthcare. I tell everybody I flunked ninth grade Latin, and I thought that was a message from God that I didn't need to be a doctor. So I decided I'll do this business side. It can't be that hard, right? So I've always done that. Started a hospital in Murfreesboro. So I actually ran the business, the admitting office, and then the business office in Murfreesboro in 1978 or something like that. They just were switching. We were the fifth customer of a little company called HVOC, which was a technology company that was now McKesson's old system. So we were the fifth hospital. The ladies who ran my office typed on typewriters that had all caps. Remember that? Multi-part forms, typed, had to print out, handwritten the name badges, and I switched them in the first few weeks from that to technology, and I've never heard such whining and bitching, my whole life as that. And so I kept one of those typewriters, and about a month later, I brought it back out and said, "You guys are right, we're going back," and there was more whining and bitching, so they liked it. So I did that, went to E&Y for about a year. I started with Phil Bredesen, some of you know him, company about 2 years after startup, and that was Phil put in $50,000 and took out $45 million in 5 years, and I said, I think I'd like to do that. I think I want to be one of these entrepreneurs. So we were one of the first really managed care companies. Health America Group went public on New York Stock Exchange. We haven't lived yet. We had 39 HMOs in 29 cities in 5 years. And Bredesen was the old guy. He was 36. And the rest of us were in our early 30s. So it was quite a experience to go. Started Coventry Corporation out of that. 3 of us out of Health America started that company. Did that 5 years, got involved in work comp with a company called Focus Healthcare, which is based here in Brooklyn, one of the largest work comp PPOs, which is now owned by Coventry, which is now owned by Lackey, which is now, I can't keep up anymore. I tell everybody, if you stay still in healthcare, you'll end up in the same place. So that's really been the experience. We founded Passport in 1996. I retired as CEO in 2009. We raised a lot of money, a lot of angel, 2 venture rounds, 2 private equity rounds. When I retired, and it's still funny to Clay because I came to him for advice on retiring. And he thinks that's the funniest thing he ever heard since he's never learned how to retire. So I learned from him and got it either. So we started in 96 and sold it to Experian in last year for $850 million. I did not own Landon Gibbs or somebody been telling me that I owned 100% of the company. There was many less successful things. But it was still a great experience for Nashville, I think, and people. The company's still based here. It's not McKinsey, we hired a CEO. is running Experience Healthcare, which is now a combination of all their healthcare assets, and they still growing, the company's still growing really well. So, Complete Holdings Group is a revenue cycle company founded by a great friend of mine who unfortunately dated his way. He died by nothing. He's terrible. Too much stress. So that's one lesson I teach on the side is he took it all on himself and he could not relax. It was just impossible. And that's really what got him. I mean, it's really good. It's a sad thing to watch. But he started this little company, helping hospitals get paid correctly on for their work comp stuff. So just work comp is all we do. And when I joined, now we have 10 hospitals. We've got about 500 now. So it's going well, and the company's continuing to grow. When I started Passport, I had to raise money, and I swear to God, I didn't know the difference between a venture capitalist and an investment banker. I'm not totally sure there is a difference, but if you know what I'm talking about. But they are, I just didn't know. I didn't know how you did this. So we did angel, we raised $6 million in angel money. And the way we did it was we did them all together. We found out it's too hard to go one-on-one. So we had meetings with the footnotes. We had bring uncles, aunts, anybody who would talk to write a check and pay them some money. And they liked doing that as a group. That was one thing I learned was they didn't want to one-on-one. Too much pressure, and they don't know what I'm talking about, So the group really worked out. We did angel money. We did a venture round in '99, which was a piece of cake. Do you remember that? I was the internet. Well, people would say, if you weren't about time company, we'd invest with you. And I said, well, we're not. We use the internet. We just ran great tools because we use the internet. And over so finally I said, okay, we're about time company. And changed the name to Passport at that time. We got an immediate investment, and we got like $10 million or something. And so 2 years later, 2001, you remember that time, and nobody did it time again. I mean, it was like an amazing transition to that kind of stuff. We did the private equity round in 2006. We had a big one in 2008, and then I think it looked like it was just good. I've been talking to a lot of young companies, and probably the first thing that I try to figure out is many of them don't even know what they want to do when they grow up. So many of them, and I said, look, you're either going to be a lifestyle company, you're going to work with lawyers, you want this company because you don't like working with people, and you want to be your own boss and pick the people you work with, or you're going to build it to sell. And I'm fairly sure in this room, it's 100%, build it to sell. But that's one of the first things when I'm talking to them. I'm like, what are you trying to accomplish here? And you'd be shocked at how many of them don't know. I mean, it's like, I don't know, I never thought about that. So I usually go to 2 board meetings, and I've had one at finally say, okay, we're a lifestyle company. Congratulations, that's good. Because I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do in that kind of company. And I don't think they're bad. I have no experience. So, you got to decide who you are, and usually when I'm giving this presentation, about halfway through the they do not have any idea they're trying to build value and certain reasons. So I think that's important. And if you want to build a sell, I just put together a list of things. So that's what I'm going to go through. Love to hear your feedback. You can interrupt me, I don't care, except for Bob, David, you can't interrupt me. But really like to get some feedback on this, who you're doing it. So, that's all hey, all right. This is one thing that really, to me, was so interesting that this wasn't a national conference. So, with Passport, really, almost from day one, we started thinking about who the buyer was. I mean, who is it that would buy this company at the end? So, y'all fancy words, that's the exit, strategy. It's never too early. That's what I'm telling you. You think it. Who is that buyer? Who is it that's going to get into this company? Who is it that you really want to attract their attention? So, and we build a company through this. So, I think it's like building a spec house, you know? Make sure you build it in the right location, not too big, not too small, make the colors neutral, and, you know, don't insult anybody, when you go in the building. So I think it's just got the same thing. And we would do this, we still do this in this company. So every time we talk about something and have a strategic decision to make, we test it against that buyer. Is that going to be something they like, or they won't like, or will that kill value? You know, sometimes the examples would be the passport, you would want to get a strategic relationship with a payer, you know, more strategic, and sometimes we back off of that because that would make us less valuable maybe to the potential buyer than they do the payer. So just one example that you don't want to mess yourself up. It's so easy to do doing that. In our current business, when we started to do a business line, we could not figure out where the margin was going to fall out, but we knew it was going to kill. I mean, it was going to be less. An only margin in our current business, and we're like, why would we do that? You know, so even though it was a great idea, we probably could have executed, we're going to make this company less attractive to the potential buyer. So think like the buyer of all things. We both have a seasoned, motivated management team. One of the things we did at Passport is my first CFO, who didn't make it through the whole way, by the way, but he was so underqualified. I had to pay extra money for him. You know, he'd actually taken a company payment. You know, and I lost $4 million in the 30-year business. So, you know, you got to have to see if they get you that. We needed somebody like that because he knew where we were going. You know, and it was so important. So that whole management team is key. It's overhired because if you have to change in midstream, if you have to change when you're growing or struggling, that's the worst time to change. So we just tried to hire somebody way overqualified in our CVP position. And it's risky. Sometimes you can't do it. And I always said too, as a CPO, I felt like my job was keep them up, you know, and then keep them happy. You got to be the leader. You got to be. The test was if I go over the hill, you're going to follow me. I mentioned the CFO. Our current venture capital fund's got money in us. We have a lot of experience with it, and I finally, you know, I talked for a minute, and then I just told it over to my CFO. I said, y'all don't believe me anyway, right? And they said, who wants money? Because I'm too positive, you know. I mean, I'll give them a rosy picture no matter what. So Phil is my leveler. Phil understands how they think. He understands what they're talking about. He speaks the language. He knows how to tell the story much better than I have. So I just think that's so important. You mentioned they really a lot of times they're looking at him, not me, for exactly like the company's doing. So that's why I don't do that. Rapid growth, these companies want to see growth. I know this is obvious to you guys, but they don't want to see that. They definitely don't want to see bad. I mean, I'm talking to big growth. They want to know your team knows how to sell and how to get it going. 20% of the growth is what most of these folks are looking for. So I think that's it's crucial to be able to show that kind of growth. And it's hard to do sometimes, but it's really, you got to have the right sales team. I know one question somebody's asked me in the past is, what happens, what would you advise a company something wrong? And I said, you would fire your sales guy, hire a leader. I mean, that is so crucial. We were talking about that this morning, how important it is. A lot of startup companies decide they're going to hire the sales guy. You know, that's a good offer. It's a money sales firm. That's ridiculous. You know, I know the only thing that it's going to save you is you got revenue. Even though you got to be making money at that line, and they want to see that going, you know, Passport is an unusual company. You know, advertising company. Once we sold a customer, we still have the original customer we sold in 1997, you know, and they use 3 times what they use today, and they keep bringing in new products. So that high margin is so critical to these guys. That's what they're really going to buy on. That's how you're going to get maximum value. Really have that. I threw out some numbers you guys know. You know, you've seen they'll price you off revenue, but if they really price you off, you know, that EBITDA, and they can be high. That's what it is. Yeah, I know. So, I'm not glad I'm looking for that recurring revenue. That's a be a tech company, you would be not, you know, that would be a tech company. They have high multipliers, and that's what we're doing even in our current company. We're trying to say, look, we got a lot of technology. I heard a guy say, you've heard people say, I'm a technology enabled service company. It sounds pretty cool, but I heard a guy say, I'm a service enabled technology company. I like that one better. So that's what we are doing. We certainly we need a lot more technology in the guy. I think pushing that is part of what we're doing. Recurring revenue I talked about. We built that base. So a lot of times I go to people and say you're charging in a way that you have to sell yourself. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, you can figure out a way to get a request, to build a contract type revenue. I mean, if you're charging them a percentage of savings, why not just say, look, I've demonstrated savings on the over the 5-year contract, I'll pay you X per month. You pay me X per month, and then we'll sweeten it by putting something on top. So anything you can do to start that recurring revenue coming and not be selling anything over and over again, you know, I think it's so critical and so and then you can focus on some of those figures on top of that recurring revenue. This is obvious. We really want customers that are happy and want other people to be happy. So, in our company now, in Pastor, we build in contracts. You know, if you're happy, you testify. You know, and we found there's nothing. Anybody who's ever sold anything in Pastor understands there's nothing like really at the hospital. Good hygiene, you cannot sell anything. So put it in writing, put it on our website. It's just got to be good. When we started Pastor, we went after Vanderbilt first. You know, Vanderbilt, we went down in Nashville, somebody here that we could get. And from that day forward, we were able to always refer back and say, yeah, they do it. Duke called us probably, we've been in business about 6 months. They called us from Duke. The guy over there said, I want what Vanderbilt's got. We were like, okay. When we started selling to we said, I don't care what it is. I just want what Vanderbilt's got. What you know, but that taught me something, which is these guys, particularly the academics, you know, we follow the trends, and I think they're saying, they're pretty good in contract. I'm sorry, but I hate to apply for it is important. You know, really pushing yourself with your company is so important. And a lot of times I tell you, well, you also, because if you're marketing to the buyer, so the buyer sees all this stuff, that future buyer, and I don't know if I mentioned it, but when I say buyer, I don't mean just the company, I mean the CEO, what is his name or her name, and how do I make sure she sees that I won this award and got that. And the last one's really good. If you steal some of the customers, that really gets their attention. So if you're going after some of the customers of your potential buyer, same store sales, pretty obvious. Your current customers are the easiest to sell to. So if you can figure out a way to create even a modified product that you can drop right on those guys, you're gonna not only are you gonna increase your revenue easier to get out of the way, but those buyers love that stuff. I mean, the fact that you can keep thinking up things to sell to this guy is so crucial. And so you need to do that all the time. Be talking to them, talk to your customers is pretty helpful, and you can do that. Ongoing reporting, the strong CFO needs to be. I mean, I say in here, when they come looking at you, the easy, you guys know, a lot of, particularly you on the folks that invest, I mean, if they can just create a report for you before you even think about it, I mean, that's very impressive that they can give you that kind of information. When you say, hey, what was your sales, 3 years ago, and they go, I'll have to figure that out, I got to go back and put some data, I mean, you want this at the push of the button, and you want it. So it seems a little old-fashioned now. It's an older slide. A lot of people are now buying the BI tools and some of that to really pull that data together. And I think that's very important. And the CFO needs to be the one that gives it to them, that really presents it and knows how it works and how it's important. Some of you won't like this, but I do think, in my experience, having an investment banker, a lot of people do it themselves. And I tell them, you don't know what you're doing. I mean, you do not understand how to do this. And the one thing I found is good investors, particularly private equity, want you to have good investment bankers. They know the good ones. They know they're not going to take companies on that aren't worthy. They can't use their reputation. The good investment bankers know who the good investors are. They know the ones that will try to change the deal at the end. They know the ones that will, pull some funny business. So it's really figuring out who those strong, good investment bankers are is so important. And I think that I encourage people, particularly even young companies. I said, I don't know if they'll work with you because you're so small, but ask them. I mean, you just don't know what you don't know, and you don't know how to raise money, and you need to run your company. I mean, I think that's where they're getting so much trouble, is they're raising money and they can't run their company. So I always encourage people to do that. So this is my last one. This one was, when I was writing this list, I thought, well, this is sort of silly. The buyers need to believe they're smarter than you. Maybe they are. Maybe they are. But you want them to think they are. Because the last thing you want them to think is you've done everything you can do to maximize this company and really be all it can be. I used to have them, they'd come in and say, what if you hired 3 salespeople in California? Wouldn't that increase revenue? I'm like, I done that, man. And they're like, he didn't think of everything. So anything you can do to sort of play Bill on this truth because the last thing they want to do is buy a company that you've done everything you can do. Think about it. You got to leave something on the table. So I found pretty easy to put it on, but it's been interesting to me. So that's really it. So any comments, anything you hate or you would add?
Yeah, just relative to the investment banking discussion, was it your experience, or did you just sort of develop those relationships all the time, or did that happen sort of later for you as the company matured? And then just kind of go back to that discussion, because the only really successful sales of companies that I've seen that really maximize value, either the guy was a former investment banker, or it was a really, really early strategic sale that was completely made no sense. So just any comments you have?
Yeah, in all of our deals, I'm not doing that, but we work mainly with public capital here locally. We also used 2 or 3 out of Raymond James out of New York. We've used, and I think personally, I like the local folks because I told them I knew where they live. You know, I mean, I think a lot of times when you use the bigger firms, you know, they bring in everybody and then they all disappear. You never see them again. So I do think it's important to have a relationship with them. I found it helpful in finding the right investors, you know, because these guys had experience with a lot of different firms, and they said this one would work, these two you'll pay. You know, I mean, it's just not going to work. And part of it was our personality, you know, it might have been our culture, personality, or the characters, as we were. So that was important. But what I didn't realize was that the investors that invested in us looked at who we hired too, you know, because they, like the ones that invested in us, mainly had some experience with these venture capital guys, and they didn't feel like they were going to bring in something that wasn't worth investing in. So that was something I couldn't. I mean, on today, you know, today it's different. I've got my own reputation now, but you know, and so that was good.
Jim, in your experience, have you found strategic partnerships to be a distraction and a hindrance to trying to sell a company or increase your value?
Strategic partners with other companies, wasted effort usually. I mean, that's been my experience. If you really get down to it, no matter how good the partnership is, this guy's got a different set of incentives than you do. And I've seen one joint venture that worked pretty good for a while, but also I've never seen. And usually it's our fault. You know, it's usually because we're not putting enough emphasis on keeping that thing alive. Because they're not what we think about. You know, when you wake up in the morning, your sales guy doesn't think, how can I make this partner more successful? You know, I mean, they're thinking about themselves. And that's been crucial, I think. You might totally disagree with it.
In terms of like hiring, we obviously young companies, so hiring and talent. You talked about like some of the position in terms of talked about the sales, leading sales.
Sales is number one. So get a sales guy. If you can get a sales, Jeff Drake is in there now. Jeff Drake is a passport. Jeff Drake going at passport. I mean, at 30 hospitals. Jeff Drake hired for passport and had 2,500 passports. And so Jeff did sell all the sales. Jeff was a sales manager. So he knew how to hire great salespeople. He can sell too, but that's not his strength. He knows how to hire, he knows how to manage them, he knows how to find them, he knows how to keep them in line. Because a good salespeople is crazy. You know, I mean, wildly unfocused, and so he knows how to just keep them in, and I think that's been crucial to have that position. So I wouldn't hire a salesperson. I hired my first two salespeople were passport, former cell phones, so they sold cell phones. They were the nicest guys. They were aggressive, everything. They got laughed at in so many hospitals because they didn't have a clue what, you know, what they were selling and how to use. So I really think the first hire, even if you guys wouldn't be part of the company, is sales managers. So somebody who can hire them salespeople and keep them busy.
In that regard, I'm sure Michael will touch on this here in a moment. But
Michael's real clean up everything else.
I'd be interested in your thoughts with regard to the characteristics of a sales leader and that sales talent, because I know we all have experiences with account reps that we sort of refer to as having skills in gardening and sort of nurturing and protecting versus the sales executive who's a hunter, who's going out and really isn't that focused on protection and nurturing. It's all about acquisition, whether we do close this, growth orientation. So that gardener versus hunter.
Yeah, I think, again, I differentiate Jeff Gary, who's a sales leader, from sales people. I would tell you, Jeff is still good on both sides. You know, he said, particularly in healthcare, if you burn one, you probably find a hundred. We really know each other. The last thing you want to do is piss off the criminals. You know, they're going to write a white paper that's going to kill you. So I think that the number one characteristic is a lot of energy, a lot of focus, a lot of every morning getting up and saying, I got to knock on the door about this, all my people do. You know, we've got to knock on the door with anybody. And I really do. I see so many companies that will do it, sometimes that slides because other things are, that's hard, you know. I mean, if you don't have somebody like you got fit, totally 100% of the time, he doesn't take it like anything else. When I knock on the door, he's going to leave this, it's going to get rid of that. And they all intuitively know. I think a good one knows. I can't sell something we can't deliver. I can't, you know, I got to sell something that is not by this company. And that's a mistake. That's a short cut to the ground for out there. You know, okay, Mark. Yep. So, thank you very much.